Just imagine this for a moment. A very simple idea, but also a very uncomfortable one. Your desire doesn't start manifesting because you finally did something right. It starts manifesting the moment you stop interfering with it. And this is where everything becomes interesting, because most people know how to want something. They know how to dream. They even know how to visualize. But almost no one knows how to behave when reality actually starts moving toward them. And this is exactly the moment when everything usually falls apart. You've probably experienced this before. First, there's a feeling that something shifted, like something inside became calmer, or suddenly small coincidences begin to appear. Unexpected messages, random meetings, subtle signs, and it feels like things are finally aligning for you. But then something else kicks in: anxiety, doubt, the urge to control, to speed things up, to check if it's really happening. And in the end, everything collapses. And the most important thing you need to understand: this is not a mistake. This is a pattern. Because the moment your desire starts becoming real, your old state begins to defend itself. The version of you that lived without this desire fulfilled. It doesn't want to disappear so easily. And it starts whispering. What if it doesn't work? What if this isn't it? What if you need to do more? And this is where the process breaks. Neville Goddard talked about states, about the idea that you don't attract your desire. You become the person who already has it. And while this sounds beautiful in theory, in real life, when things actually begin to move, you suddenly go back, because it feels unfamiliar to be that new version of yourself. And this is a very subtle moment, almost invisible, because on the outside, it still looks like you're doing the work. You're thinking about your desire. You're trying to stay focused. But inside, you are no longer the person who has it. You become the one who is waiting again. And waiting is a pause. It stops the process. Joseph Murphy said that the subconscious mind accepts only what feels true to you, not what you repeat with words, not what you try to force, but what feels like a fact inside. And when your desire begins to manifest, a gap appears, because the external signs are already there, but your internal state is still the old one. And this gap destroys everything. You start checking, analyzing, looking for proof, and by doing that, you return to the state of not having it. And most people don't even realize what's happening. They think they need more effort, more techniques, more action. But the truth is the opposite. You need to stop interfering. But it sounds too simple. And that's exactly why it's so hard. Because when you feel like something important is about to happen, you want to hold on to it, to secure it, to make sure it doesn't slip away. And that very need destroys the process. There's a principle that is rarely explained clearly. When your desire starts manifesting, you must behave as if there's nothing left to lose, because you already have it within. But most people do the opposite. They cling to the result, as if it could disappear. And in that moment, they return to a state of lack. And reality reflects that immediately. Think about this. If you already had what you want, you wouldn't check it every 5 minutes. You wouldn't feel anxious. You wouldn't try to speed it up. You would be calm. And that calmness is the signal that allows everything to continue unfolding. There's another hidden trap. When things start to move, people begin to talk about it, to share it, to seek validation from others. And in that moment, they shift their attention outside. But the power is always within. The moment you depend on someone else's reaction, you give away control, and the process slows down. Not because you shouldn't tell anyone, but because your state changes. You stop being the source and become the observer. And here's something very important to understand. Your desire manifests not because of what you do, but because of who you become. And if you return to your old self, the result disappears. It's like balance. You don't achieve it once and keep it forever. You maintain it, not through effort, but through naturalness. That's why Neville talked about the feeling of naturalness. Your desire must feel normal, familiar, not something extraordinary. Because the moment you treat your desire as something special, something extremely important, you place it above yourself, and that separates it from you. And the process stops. There's also something that ruins everything almost every time: the need to help the manifestation. When you start thinking, maybe I should text, maybe I should do something, maybe I should push this forward. And sometimes action is needed, but the difference is the state you act from. If it comes from calmness, it's natural movement. If it comes from fear, it's interference. And reality responds to that with precision, because you can't fake your state. You can fake words, actions, but not the feeling inside. And that feeling creates your results. It's very important to catch that moment when you feel the urge to do something right now. Pause and ask yourself a simple question. Am I acting because it feels natural, or because I'm afraid of losing the result? And if you answer honestly, you'll see the difference. This is where the real work begins. Not in techniques, not in visualization, but in holding the state. This is the level most people never reach, because it can't be packaged into a quick method. But this is what changes everything. When your desire starts manifesting, your job is not to speed it up, not to control it, not to force it, but simply not to ruin it. And this requires maturity, because you have to trust a process you cannot fully see. And the mind doesn't like that. It wants control, certainty, guarantees. But the moment you try to understand everything, you leave the state, and you go back to waiting. And waiting is absence. There's a powerful idea shared by many teachers. If you truly accepted your desire as a fact, you no longer think about it the same way. It's not the center of your attention anymore. You don't forget it, but it no longer creates tension. And that state is the key, because there is no resistance in it. And where there is no resistance, there are no obstacles. Try to remember, when something in your life happened easily, without struggle, without effort, there was always a feeling of course, this is normal. No tension. That's the state you need to return to, not by forcing it, but by understanding, by realizing that if the process has already started, it means it's already decided, and your only job is not to go back. And this is where your environment, your thoughts, your pravichnaya reakcija will try to pull you back, and you need to see it, not fight it, not suppress it, but simply not follow it. As if you're watching your old self trying to take control again. But you are different now, and you choose not to engage. This is subtle work, but this is what separates those who succeed from those who are always almost there. And if right now you feel like something in your life is already moving, something is already unfolding, don't miss this moment, because this is where everything is decided, not when you first make a wish, but right now, when reality begins to respond. And if you can stay in this state, without interfering, without panicking, without checking, you will see how fast everything can come together. And if you go back to control, fear, waiting, the process will stop again, and you'll think it doesn't work, when in reality, you just interfered. If this resonates with you, write in the comments if you've noticed how things fall apart the moment you start worrying, and hit the like button, so more people who are at this exact stage can see this, because this is where support matters the most. And make sure you subscribe, because we're going even deeper in the next videos, into things that don't just change results, but change the way you experience reality itself. And remember the most important thing. When your desire starts manifesting, you're already at the final stage, and the only thing that can ruin it is you. But also, the only thing that can bring it to completion is you. Just choose not to interfere, because anything is possible.